Today's message from Reverend Christian Sorensen was recorded March 20th, 2016, and it's titled, Is There a Ceiling to Your Abundance? Subtitled, We Are Capable of Moving Through Any of the Ceilings that We Have Put There. Come visit us at www.seasidecenter.org or join us in Encinitas, California sometime, or as usual, great music, a spirited message, and a joyful, loving community await you.
Feel the joy, feel the peace, and the comfort of home, 'cause all are welcome here. Yes, all are welcome here.
Yeah, it's about moving through your ceiling. I'll assure you, singing is a ceiling I have no desire to move through, which is a blessing for all of you, I assure you. Could you imagine having to put up with me trying to move through that ceiling? Oh, that'd be tough for sure. On you. Oh, wow, I'd clear out the place. Let's see. So moving through your ceiling, I love Dr. Petra's about with her mom. That is such a great example in our lives that we tend to go out only as far as our parent, and then we kind of stop there. And there is this ceiling that sometimes gets difficult to get through. And what I want us to get today when we leave here is that we have ceilings all over the place and that we are capable of moving through any of the ceilings that we have put there. You know, a number of years ago, I used to run around the country a lot more and do speaking. I can remember one season, I hardly saw Cali. I was doing the Northeast Corridor, and then I was down in the South going through them, and then I was off to Russia, then speaking in England, then to India, and then down to South Africa. And it was amazing. Everywhere I went, they wanted me to stick around longer. They wanted more of me. Can I just have an hour more and have a conversation? And I said, I can't. I got to catch a plane. I got to go. Can we have more? And it's like, I just can't do that. And what was amazing is there is that ceiling. I can't do that. And then you have Timothy, this videographer hanging out at Seaside, said, hey, Christian, I had this vision. Let's podcast you for the world. And it was like, boom, right through that ceiling instantly. And it was 10 straight years he's been sitting behind there. And they said, hey, let's do live streaming. And now everybody can have it live. And all I ever knew was Richard and Sally Crawford, who we used to cameras, lights, cables, TVs. And to get on TV, it was very expensive. And now we're able to put it out there. And I want us to get that we've got to be available. We've got to recognize that I don't need to know how to get through the ceiling. I just need to know what's on the other side that I'm capable of. Those that have been in my class, have been hearing me talk about this book on mysticism I'm going to write someday. And a couple of years ago, Lori Gertz was sitting in class and said, well, I'll help you create a bestseller. And it's like, wow, this is great. And we have been engaged in the project for a couple years on this. But what I recognize is it's so important to be willing to get help. If you want to get through a ceiling in your life, you've got to be willing to get That's right, because what I know is I'm not the smartest guy in town. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, and there are others that are sharper and smarter than I am. But it doesn't mean I can't move through that ceiling. I just got to have the vision. You've got to be willing to be a visionary, to know that there is something that is calling you beyond, and I'm going to change my perspective here. I'm going to change my perspective and recognize that I'm capable of doing this. I'm going to get some help. Andrew Carnegie, you know Carnegie Steel, 1908, richest guy on the planet. He would say, or at least I read, he said that he didn't know anything about steel. He didn't even care to know anything about steel. But he had a mastermind group, people that believed and supported one another. And together, they created whatever mechanisms and pieces and strategy it was to create this huge conglomerate upon this planet. You've just got to be willing to have a vision and say, I can do this. I know when Callie and I, we got our first house in Del Mar. We decided we want to have our own home. And so I told people, and they say, you got to have money. It's like, really? Now that's a novel concept. It's like, that may be your ceiling, but I don't have any. And I want a house. And honest to goodness, we prayed, and across the street there was a sign that sat out there forever. I talked to the guy, and he gave us the house. And we didn't have any money. I mean, we made things work. That it made him happy. But you know what? That ceiling dissolved. So when Seaside found this nursery packing house in 98, and people said you needed to have money to buy this place, I said, that's not my ceiling. We didn't have any money in the bank. We actually had to borrow money to make a bid on this place. Now, it doesn't mean the money doesn't show up and the ways and the means don't begin to reveal themselves in miraculous, but you got to have the vision and say, there's not a ceiling that's going to stop me from experiencing this vision. I can own a spiritual home, community, place, and not know how I'm going to get there, but I know there's a vision inside of me, and there's a vision inside of you. Don't let the ceilings that you have stop you. Don't let your finances stop you. Don't let the doctor stop you. Don't let anything stop you, because that ceiling can be busted through at any level, but you're the one who's got to believe it and know it and say, there's something inside of me. There's just something inside of me that I'm going to partner with. There's an all-knowing wisdom and power. It is omnipresent, which means it's everywhere. I love that about spirit. It's everywhere, which means there is 100% of what it is you need right where you are. 100. That's right. 100. Amen. That's right. So all you got to do is have that vision or that question, and on the flip side of that coin is the answer, right? It's the law of polarity. You know, every up, there's down, there's in, there's out, there's hot, there's cold. You know, there's a question, and then there's an answer. There's a flip side. It's the polarity. The question is, or not the question, it could be a question. I'm making this up. But, you know, what you want is a greater question if you want a greater answer. That's it. So live with a bigger vision and possibility and recognize that I just need to change my perspective and that I'm not weak. Okay? I'm not weak. You're not weak. Spirit's 100% available. You're all powerful. You know the story of Paul? I mean, that's a pretty depressing one there for a while. The guy in the Bible who wrote some letters. I mean, this guy was blind, went blind. He was in a shipwreck. He spent all night bobbing up in the ocean with no hope of survival. He was almost starved to death. He was a deserted island. He was falsely accused. He was beaten nearly to death. And he was thrown in prison. Tough day. Oh yeah, that's it. But I'll tell you what about that. In one of his writings to Philippians, he said that all things are possible through Christ that is my strength. Through Christ, he didn't say Jesus, he didn't say a man. He said through Christ. He's talking about an awareness, a Christ consciousness, a divine realization. We call it the Buddha consciousness, the Krishna consciousness. We happen to be doing this Easter thing, so I'm calling it the Christ consciousness today. He said all things are possible. He's thrown in jail, and do you think you could make a difference from a jail cell? And yet he did. He made a change, a planetary change that is still going on today. What I want you to know is all things are possible if you're willing to change your perspective, and the ceiling says, I can't make a difference because I'm incarcerated. Where have you incarcerated yourself? Then realize that the ceiling cannot stop you, that you are able to move beyond that. And yes, as you press up against that invisible membrane there, that you'll have pushback. But everyone has difficulties. Just because you're deeply spiritual doesn't mean you don't have to still step up. You know? You've got to. It says, what? The rain falls on the just and the unjust. So I don't care how spiritual you are, it's still going to rain on your parade. It's going to rain on your house. And you can be deeply spiritual, but what the parable told us is, some will build their house on rock, right? That's the spiritual foundation. That is a deep belief in the divine, of what is possible, that vision. I know God, it's omnipresent. That's the rock, and some are going to build it on sand. And when that rain comes, when that typhoon hits, and even now in California when the hurricanes come, the house that is on sand, gone. But just because you're spiritual doesn't mean you don't get hit. But what it does mean is you're on bedrock. Your foundation is spiritual. Your foundation is steep. And just because you don't know how to move through, you've got a vision that says you can, and you are saying yes to that, and there's something stirring in your soul. It may look like a lot, but I got to tell you something. Don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed by what it is you got to do. Because people get overwhelmed because I got so much to do. I got to tell you, you're not overwhelmed because you have a lot to do. You're overwhelmed because you're not clear as to what that next step is for you. All you need to do is get clarity as to what is the next step. Don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed because there is so much. What I want to do is just be clear as to what it is I want to do next. And that I don't need to be a control freak here. Okay? It's like, it's not, I don't want to be into control. I want to be more trusting. How do you like that? I don't want to be more controlling. I want to be more trusting. I want to be able to trust the ease and the grace and the divine unfoldment is taking place, and that I don't need to push all the buttons, calibrate, recalibrate, or pull out the hammer and pound down all the nails, make sure things are tight for when that hurricane does hit. I want to be able to trust this Spirit is moving in my life in a way that is so blessed, and as I do, I begin to be that blessing to those that are around me. Hallelujah. That's right. Get that parade going. This is the day of the triumphant entry into a new state of consciousness that will bring to you what's next for you. But what I do know is that as you begin to do your thing, you've got to catch your talking going on, because that ceiling is called your belief systems. If you want a little more vernacular for that. You know, you got to catch yourself and not allow yourself to get caught in that self-talk of the beliefs and what's going on in your brain. There's something that is greater than that. That's going to the source, to that presence, to that which is 100% available, that has the answers, the ways. It's the intelligence that guides the universe, and you're of this stuff. That means you've got that same wisdom moving in you. And what I want to do is move to a higher place. I want to move to a mountaintop and begin to observe down upon my life and recognize, hey, there's a valley and there's challenges and there's hurricanes, but you know what? I'm above the storms and I'm above this ceiling, and I am able to see clearly right now all of it coming together in a point that is a now moment that allows me to know what I need to do next, because I am now clear, no longer overwhelmed, but I am clear as to what is mine to do next in my life. Hallelujah. And for me, it's always to share, to give, because as I share, things begin to rise. And what I know about Seaside, as all of our world works, we all lift up to a new place. There's a new meme that is set. You know, a meme is a set of consciousness that says we're operating here, not down here. And as the meme for us all begins to rise, we all begin to rise. It's why it's important that all of us are doing our spiritual work to help lift Seaside to a greater place, so we can do more than pick 2,400 pounds of lemons. We can pick 5,000 pounds of lemons, or 2 tons of lemons. You know, as we begin to rise, it shows up in the ways and the areas that are relevant and real in our life, that are important to us, not to somebody else. But what is valuable is, as our world begins to work, we are that, we share that, we give that, and everything rises around us. I love the story of the Iowa corn grower. And he used to always win the best corn at the state fair every year. He won the best corn. And what he would do after he won is he took the seeds from all of his best corn and he gave it to his neighbors and invited them to plant the good stuff, the champion stuff. And people would say, and why do you do that? And he said, because corn only grows through cross-pollination. And his field or her field pollinates my field, and their field pollinates my field. And it's only as you got the good going on that this is going to be good. See, and that's what happens in our life. It's only as we begin to have this greater expression that this meme begins to, we begin to rise with it, that we're no longer concerned about survival or scarcity. You know, as you're operating at a new vibration of being, you're not worrying about how you're going to pay for groceries or how you're going to pay a mortgage payment. Or even if you need money for a mortgage payment, it's just not in that field of vibration. Others may be playing there because that is the level in which their consciousness is, but you're now playing at a level where others are at, where it is not one of concern. And all around you begins to be blessed, pollinated, if you would, by your thoughts, by your good actions, your good deeds. And from there, things are enriched back. It's that reciprocal kind of activity. And when you know this, because you have this higher view, you're not caught up into the limited kind of thinking. You're looking from the other side of the ceiling. You begin to see the truth of that and sharing that. There was interesting research that was done. There were 2 similar streets about a mile apart in rundown ghetto inner city. And they did an experiment at a university. They decided they weren't going to tell anybody. But they were going to clean up one of the streets. And every day, they were going to send somebody in, they're going to clean up the streets, pick up the trash, plant flowers along the curb, get rid of the graffiti, hose down the sidewalks. And after a period of time, others on the city block began to wash their own sidewalks, take care of their own house, get rid of their own graffiti. And at the end of the year project, what they discovered, the crime and the difficulty of both the streets that were similar, the one that had gotten cleaned up had fallen in half. By 50%, the crime was down and the difficulties and the challenges upon that street because of a shift that took place, that spread out. It was that ripple effect. It was that cross-pollination. It is the blessing that comes from when you do your work and you get the good seed and the good idea and you share that and allow yourself to be that vortex because you had a vision from a higher place, from this God place, that things begin to shift and things begin to line up in a way that make a difference in your life and in your world. But you're the one who has to know that what I'm doing does make a difference, and what I am doing can make an impact. And, there's people who operate at the level in which they operate, and what I'm going to do is try to be that light for a different level of being. I'm going to move through that ceiling and begin to say, you know what, this is possible through my demonstration, my action. I'm going to ride triumphantly and let people see the good works that are happening. It's interesting, for me anyway, to take a look, that we are operating in a realm, as I said, 100%. Spirit is omnipresent, all is possible, and some have a ceiling that doesn't go any higher than where their parents had been, or doesn't go any higher than where their pain has been, or doesn't go any higher than when their belief has been. And you see that very clearly in the marketplace. Saw this study from a couple years ago. 2013, at the end of 2013, so it came out in 2014, that the minimum wage then was $7.25 was the minimum wage, about $15,000 a year. How anybody can live on that, bless their heart. It's a miracle. That's the low end. On the high end, the highest wage earner in America for that year was David Tepper. David Tepper was the founder of what's the horse name? Appaloosa Management. There you go. Founder of that. And he manages now over $20 billion. That year, he received in payments, this is what is recorded, $3.5 billion. $7.25 an hour or $3.5 billion. Now, I'm not talking about right or wrong here. I am just pointing out to you there are ceilings that people operate under and ones that blow right past that. Is he worth $3 billion? Well, I don't know. If you're generating more than 40%, 42% that year of income for those who invested with him, and he was controlling $20 billion, then $3.5 billion is a drop in the bucket. You get that? It's not much, but what level are you playing at? The banks, I think, pay what, 1/3 or 0.5% on your checking account, and he's getting 42%. What I'm saying is the marketplace, which is kind of nebulous, but it's energetic. It honors the value you bring. At $7.25, they can go out and train somebody to do that in an hour or two, to run a cash register at, a fast food place. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I worked in a restaurant once, but what I want us to get is that there is a wide range of possibilities for you, and one is not right and one is not wrong, but what you want to do is bring to the marketplace greater value if you want to raise that revenue stream into your life. If you want to raise the greater satisfaction and fulfillment and success in your world, bring greater value. You want more? You've got to be more. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. You want change? You have got to be the change, because I'll tell you what's going on for sure is that life is progressing. 1860, I think I shared this statistic with you once before. 80% of America was farmers. Today it's less than 2%. 1860, Industrial Revolution, new technology, steam, machines. One farmer could do the work of 500. Do you know how devastated, how angry, how bitter, how resentful the farmers were that were no longer farming? Because of the new technology, which was painful in that place, but all of a sudden it transformed the world to a better place. I share that because what we're going through right now is a new kind of technology that is transforming the world. And I hear over and over how terrible, how horrible, I lost my job, there's not enough work out there. I want you to know that there is a surplus of work and jobs that are available for those that have the education and not the education. You go to Silicon Valley, there's plenty of available stuff, but you've got to retool. You've got to be willing to move forward as the time and space begin to evolve and not get stuck in the ceiling that this is terrible and this is horrible. There is going to be a death or a crucifixion of what's going on in this present moment for something else to rise greater out of it. But if you're caught up in your ceiling and your beliefs that it's the end of the world, it's Armageddon, I'm going to die of starvation, as opposed to do something different. You can do something different. Oxford research stated through a research project or study that in 20 years, nearly 50% of the jobs in America are going to be automated or just gone. You can deny it, you can fight it, you can refuse it, or you can retool. You can be part of pushing through that ceiling that says, this is all I can do. All I can do is speak. But someone says, hey, there's a social media thing. Maybe you could podcast. Maybe you could live stream. Maybe you could webinar. I go, I don't know how to do that. But I ask for help. You got to be willing to ask for help to move through a ceiling, because you would have moved through that ceiling by now if you knew how. I watch people set goals and they know how to attain their goal. I'll tell you what, if you know how to attain your goal, you're not growing. You're going sideways, which might be okay, but you're not going through that ceiling. Things happen. The rain and the storms hit the deeply spiritual and those that don't have a clue. But if your foundation is on bedrock, that's solid, you know your source is not outside. Your source is from that infinite, that which is 100% there. It's omnipresent. There was a guy, Bernie Marcus, 47, graduated from college, spent 30 years working for the same company, corporation, home improvement, helped them go national. He was a key part of their management. And then all of a sudden, the executives decided they were going with new management or restructuring or whatever you want to call that. Bottom line is he got fired or he let go. I'm sure it was a comfortable let go. And some other guys, another guy by the name of Arthur Blank. That's true. No, that is his name. Never know with me, right? But what I find fascinating is these guys, rather than getting angry, bitter, resentful, hateful, or malicious, they said, hey, let's go start our own home improvement company. So in the late 70s, they started something called Home Depot. You ever hear of that? They started Home Depot. Now Arthur Blank owns the Atlanta Falcons football team, and you know, you get to decide, I'm going to retool. I'm going to do something. I'm going to find some help to move through where I have been heretofore so I can see from a higher place, from a spiritual place, you know, and I'm going to catch that vision. I mean, that's how I got into this whole thing. I caught this vision. I'll share from you from my new book here. I'm very excited about it. And it's I just got it put together, but it's not for sale yet. So I'm just teasing you with it. Actually meeting tomorrow with an agent, and you're going to find a publisher for it, so you can't sell the book. So this is why my class on Living from the Mountaintop, Lori actually created this, and we made 100 of these. So that's it. That's the only, you can't buy it. We're going to give it to you for the class. So that's it. But I want to share with you, I told you the story about being in New Zealand at 19. I ran off there, never to return to surf and ski and live like a, good Southern California dude. And I was waiting for the storms to clear off the Tasman Glacier down at Mount Cook and down to South Island. I was outside in the middle of this wild storm under these rock outcroppings. And I can remember sitting there. And I was sitting there in the storm, and all of a sudden, I saw myself, like 20 years later, standing under the lights of a spiritual center, looking back at that 19-year-old sitting under the rocks. And when we were putting this book together, it got the chills. I got into that experience. I was visited now by then, that 19-year-old, and I gave now this my wisdom and advice to that 19-year-old. Go for it. You can do it. Believe it. You move through the ceiling. Everything you need will be there for you. You just have to trust. And so I wrote about that here, that mystical moment in my life, where I said that the great, and I quoted this book, The Cloud of Unknowing by this unknown monk. He said, "Yet it's not a will or a desire, but something which you are at a loss to describe, which moves you to the desire you know not what. Truly, I never had words for this experience, but my life was forever changed after that moment. I rushed home and enrolled in the right program to support my spiritual vision. I fell in love with the vision life had for me. There was a sense of familiarity, and with my vision from under that gigantic boulder sheltering me from the storm, I recognized and remembered what I came here to do. All I wanted to do was be used as a conduit to bring it into expression. And since that moment, my life's journey has been magical and filled with incredible and continuous demonstrations of the healing power from beyond. By saying yes to that not-so-subtle tap on the shoulder, my soul's curriculum was rearranged, bringing forth my life lessons and insights in ways that I would never have expected. I've grown and I've stretched, and I've had the opportunity to enjoy a fulfilling and abundant life of enough, surrounded by love. Yes, I've had my challenges and concerns, but I've been able to face them with a deep knowingness that I'm on my right path, and the path is my home while I walk this world, so I don't ever feel I need to hide." So this is where I usually tell you to run out and buy the book, but you can't have it. But it's that place that I experience that I want you to be able to experience. And you can only do that in meditation or in the silence or the stillness. I don't care what you call it, but you've got to be that place where you experience that vibration of that divinity, of that Christ consciousness, that Buddha consciousness, that something. And know that you've got a path, and there's going to be challenges, and it's going to rain on your parade or your path. But if your foundation is based upon spirit, this is where you find the strength and the power that is 100% with you wherever you are. You know, when people come for healing, you know, to be able to go to that place and touch down and feel that vibration, healing happens. I don't need to get the right affirmation or get into denials. Denials and affirmations come from the mind. The mind is not where the power is. It is sitting in that frequency and that vibration of that high place, of that mountaintop place, of absolute connectedness, of knowing that the spirit and the presence is there, and that there is no time, there is no space, there is no problems, there's only spirit, and it's expressing as me, expressing as you in your life. But you've got to be quiet enough in your world to hear it, not get caught up in the chatter, not get caught up in, I'm not going to make it through this ceiling. Whatever grabs it, let it go, because you're so familiar with that high place in your life and your world. There's a Zen story of 4 monks. They committed to meditating in silence for 2 weeks. They made it through the first day and into the night. The wind started blowing, the candles started flickering, and the light went out. And the first monk said, "Oh no, the light went out." And the second monk said, "But you're not supposed to talk." The third guy said, "You guys are talking." And the fourth guy just said, I didn't say anything." This world will grab us to believe what's going on is the truth that is greater than what is true for your soul and your spirit and your path. But as you work in that place of quiet, you'll be that light that lifts all around you. William Butler Yeats, he said, "We can have our mind be so like a still waters that beings will gather around in order to catch their image, and life for a moment will be clearer and even perhaps fiercer life because of your quiet." Got that? Because of your quiet. Because of your connectedness with that which you can't even describe is so real that people that are overwhelmed because there's so much to do, all of a sudden remember all that matters is what's next. And what's next is for you to know the truth of who you are and to be that in this world. And know that whatever ceiling is there is just part of strengthening you to be greater than that. because this world needs what it is you've got. And I look forward to you sharing it with us all. God bless.
Such a long way home from where you have been. And what will it take to bring you back again? And all your searching's brought you to this place. You cry for mercy and you long for grace. Feel the love, feel the light. Won't you come in from the cold? 'Cause all are welcome here. Feel the joy, feel the peace, and the comfort of home. 'Cause all are welcome here. Yes, all are welcome here. Can you hear the sound, the whisper in your soul that calls you back to where you belong? And all your searching's brought you to this place. You cry for mercy and you long for grace. Feel the love, feel the light. Won't you come in from the cold? 'Cause all are welcome here. Feel the joy, feel the peace, and the comfort of home. 'Cause all are welcome here. Yes, all are welcome here. Behold the love. Behold the light in your mind, in your heart, in your soul. In your mind, in your heart, in your soul. In your mind, in your heart, in your soul. And all your searching's brought you to this place. You cry for mercy and you long for grace. Feel the love, feel the light. Won't you come in from the cold? 'Cause all are welcome here. Feel the joy, feel the peace, and the comfort of home. 'Cause all are welcome here. Yes, all are welcome here. Here.
All Are Welcome Here, from the album Path of Light, was co-written by Peggy Lebo and Reverend Christian Sorensen. It's available at www.peggylebo.com.